Well. Welcome to our podcast tonight. We have a great one for you. Listen, if you're just now tuning in, hurry up and share this information. Share, right? Sharing is caring. No, seriously, share because we have a great topic tonight and I want to get as many people involved in the conversation. So I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to go ahead and hit that share button and invite someone to the conversation tonight. Invite someone to the conversation. All right. We're going to give people time to get on. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. That's right. Subscribe to the channel so you can stay informed. And as soon as we are dealing with various topics, you'll get an alert to say, hey, the upcoming show. So again, share. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you for being with us tonight. I'm going to check out my YouTube audience as well to make sure that we are on YouTube here. Subscribe button. That's right. Subscribe. All right, you hear me talking. So you can stay informed. That means we're on YouTube. Let me give you about 30 more seconds. Again, share. Let's go into this conversation. Let's hit this conversation. We're talking about unconditional love versus deal breakers. Unconditional love. And we're going to kind of break down this unconditional love and talk about, at what point it's like, yeah, I love you, but these are some deal breakers. And when you say unconditional love, we'll get more into it. That's like, no matter what happens, I love you. But does that mean that do you still stay, right? So you got 20 seconds to share and get some people into the conversation. If you're on tonight, shout yourself out on the chat so we can see. If you're in Cincinnati, just say Cincinnati, but hey, some may be in a different city. So go ahead and shout your city out real quick. I'm going to shout mine out. I'm going to say, tuning in from Cincinnati. Or should I say from Claremont? That's funny. All right. So again, we're talking about unconditional love and versus deal breakers. Again, thank you for sharing. If you shared, thank you. I'm going to invite someone to the conversation tonight because we are going to discuss it. So unconditional love versus deal breakers. My subline is, where do you draw the line, right? Is love really unconditional, or do we all have limits? Can you forgive everything, or are some things just too much to overlook? Tonight, we're going to dive deep into the raw truth about love, loyalty, and the hard stops in relationships, i.e., family drama, cheating, financial secrets, lack of ambition. Let's talk about it. And I want you to drop your thoughts in the comments and let us know what do you think? Do you think that that unconditional love is so strong that the financial secrets, the lack of ambition, the family drama, the cheating, all those things can kind of be overlooked? Not saying that it's accepted, but it can be overlooked because the love is so strong. Or do you say, yeah, the love is strong, but this is where I draw the line? So I want to be able to have this conversation because I'm sure that maybe at some point in your life, you may have dealt with some various things just like this. And so that's why we want to have these relationship topics, because for the most part, many people have experienced something, very similar to this. So first of all, what is unconditional love? When we talk about unconditional love, how do you really define that? Now, for me, I think when you talk about unconditional love, it's the idea, the concept of loving someone regardless of their flaws or mistakes. Regardless of that. Now, here's a nuance of that, because the challenge is, are you saying that pre-relationship, right, that I am, I guess you wouldn't love them pre-relationship, but even with, before you get into a relationship, it may not be love. you may see flaws and mistakes, and you say, no, this person is still someone that I feel we can move forward and have potential, right? But then once you get in love and all those things, is that love strong where you say, I have unconditional love, meaning that despite their flaws, their mistakes, I'm still going to love them? Does it exist in romantic relationships, or is it more of a parent-child thing? I've always struggled with this unconditional love, and I've always said that I think many times that unconditional love may be more. You may see it more when it's with a child and a parent versus a mate, which is very interesting. Especially if you're married, right? Because if you're married at that point, people that follow the biblical structure is the spouse and the children. But you'll find out that a lot of people have unconditional love for their children, not necessarily for their spouse, because their child can do X, Y, and Z, and they'll still love them. They don't say, "Hey, you're no longer my child." However, if your spouse do something, you're no longer my spouse. And I really should have went into psychology. I was very interested in psychology. I just like how people think and thoughts. That's why I say, what's on your mind? What you thinking? What you thinking? And a lot of people say nothing. But I think our mind is always going, and sometimes it's going with like random thoughts, right? But think about that. No one trade their child in. Like, yeah, you know what? You hurt me so bad, I'm trading you in for somebody else. We've grown apart. No one grows apart from their child, right? Well, I don't know. I think when you get to a certain age, that parents start growing apart because now you're both adults. I think there is a thing there. But when they're a child and under your care, you don't grow apart from your child. I hope not. I always jokingly say this, but it's real. It's real. Like no one says, "Hey, look at that child. Look at that person's child over there. I wish I had that child." I don't think parents really do that. Maybe somewhere in the world they do, but for the most part, I don't think parents really do that. Like, I want that child. However, on the flip side, when it comes to relationships, marriages, people will look at somebody else's spouse or mate and be like, I wouldn't mind that one. No, I think the same love that it's the same, but it's different, right? That you would have for your child, that you would have for your mate too as well. You don't try to trade your child in for the next shining object, right? Like, oh, that child is smarter. Come here, I want you to be my child. And you put your child out. No, because you have that unconditional love. But when it comes to relationships, marriages, engagements, is it the same? Can unconditional love and boundaries coexist? We want to talk about that tonight. I'm asking that question. Feel free to put your comments there in the chat. Now, I used to always ask you guys to call in, but I don't think people have that they want to call in, right? But put that in the chat. Do you think that unconditional love and boundaries coexist? I would love. I'm going to actually put that question in the chat tonight. If you're watching on Facebook, I'm putting that right now in the chat on Facebook. And can unconditional love and boundaries coexist? Can it coexist? Now let's talk about. So we talked about unconditional love. Now let's talk a little bit about deal breakers and understanding deal breakers. I guess the first part would be like, what defines a deal breaker? I think examples of infidelity, dishonesty, addictions. People, hey, I love you, but you got this addiction, financial irresponsibility, lack of ambition. A lot of times I hear most times with women, and they'll say, he doesn't have much ambition or he doesn't have much drive, and that kind of just like was a complete turn off for them. Well, on the flip side too as well, you have women that don't have much drive or much ambition, and that too can be impactful for a male, especially a male that has ambition. If a male doesn't have ambition, he probably don't care if you got it, unless he want to live off of you. Then he wants you to have it, because if you don't have it, he don't have it. What y'all gonna do, right? Somebody got to have it. And the great part is in an ideal situation, if both parties have it, you have a great situation working for you, right? But so how you understand deal breakers? People have defined it like, hey, certain things will make me say, Now, do you feel that deal breakers in relationships and in relationships pre-marriage, right? Do you feel deal breakers pre-marriage should be different than deal breakers when you get married? Meaning that if there's some deal breakers you have before you get married, would it be the same deal breakers when you get married? Right? So some people argue about that, as I'm talking about it, because some things when you're married, it shouldn't be a deal breaker, but it can be a deal breaker before you get married because you haven't made that commitment. You haven't made that covenant with that person, right? So, and it may be more minor before you get married, right? Because some minor things that people call a deal breaker in marriage really probably shouldn't be. But if you call it a deal breaker before marriage, you can do that because you're not covenantally committed, right? So some deal breakers I think should be different. Like in marriage, it should be more severe things that would say, hey, this is a deal breaker versus before you get married, if that makes sense, right? Are deal breakers always black and white? And that's another thing that I asked that question. Or can they change based on circumstances or based on experiences? Right? Because let's be honest, do everyone know all deal breakers? And sometimes you don't even think about deal breakers until the deal breaker happens, right? Never probably thought about a certain scenario because many times you really can't phantom up all these scenarios that will make you say, nah, I'm not doing it. But as life happens, as experiences goes on, some things may come out to you. You may say, hey, no, this is a deal breaker to me. So let's talk about that. Should love have limits? If you in YouTube world, come on now. Should love have limits? You can comment or you can comment also in on YouTube as well. Should love have limits? I would like to pose that question tonight. Should love have limits? Oh, if you're watching on Facebook too as well, I'm gonna put that comment in the chat as well. Should love have limits? I want to see what your thoughts is, because some will argue if it have limits, is it love in the first place? Again, some folks will argue that if it has limits, is it love in the first place? Now, who's going to be the first to comment? Let's talk. Let's have a conversation. I want to talk back and forth with you because I believe that we all have different ideologies and understandings of things, and all my understanding and thoughts and beliefs are not necessarily the thoughts and beliefs of other people. So we have Mary here on Facebook says no to that question. Should love have limits? So it should be no limits when it comes to love. Okay. Now, some will argue that it should, right? Because some things can be so dramatic and so explosive. An experience can be so dramatic and explosive that changed the whole trajectory of your life. May have caused some mental, some physical, some pain. And like, do you still love that person? Perhaps, maybe, but you don't want to coexist with them. You don't want to live with them. You don't want to be with them. You don't want to have a marriage or relationship with them. But you say, hey, I can still love you, but we're not going to do this, right? Should it have limits? Is ride or die just like a cultural? Is ride or die like is ride or die a toxic type culture, or should it be admired? We are ride or die, meaning that no matter what happens, this love is so strong, I am not going to leave you. We're going to figure it out. Or do you feel that it's like a toxic culture? Like at some point, you got to say, get out of there, right? You're being abused, but you're saying, I'm ride or die. Well, you keep on abusing you. You may be not the riding part. You may stop riding. Maybe the other part, right? Because it can get that serious. And then you lived your life ride or die, and you really died because you was a ride or die, right? And so, what some point do you say enough is enough? So, does love have limits? What's the difference between when we talk about love? And so through my podcast, I ask these questions to get you to think and to get you to comment, right? To create conversation, to create dialogue, right? So what's the difference between compromise and settling? I want to talk about that. What's the difference? What do you feel is the difference between compromise and settling? I'll give you 10 seconds to think about it real quick. That's why I say here, you have to walk away. At some limits, yes, I think in some cases you do have to walk away and say, this is not what's best for my life. Not what's best for my life, not what's best for my health, not what's best for my mental. When there's, like I said, when there's abuse, I think that's one of the parts where you say, you know what? This ain't working. No. I thought you loved me. I thought you loved me too. Because if you love me, you wouldn't be hitting on me, right? You wouldn't be abusing me. That's not love. That's some toxic situations. But guess what? Some people stay there, right? And it can be very toxic. But what do you think is the difference? When you talk about should love have limits, what's the difference between compromise and settling? Right? Because some people say, I'm not giving this relationship up. I'm not giving this marriage up because I'm a compromise. Is it compromise or is it settling? Is it like you don't know your worth for real? And so you don't settle for mediocrity, or sometimes you're just settling for just complete trash. Complete trash, right? At what point do you say, this ain't good for me? Compromising for me is when you say compromise, you're compromising on things that are not as significant, right? Compromising, i.e., okay, I don't like the curtains, but I'm going to compromise and let those ugly curtains stay up. I hope my curtains are not ugly, but let those curtains stay up. We're compromising, right? You're not going to say, you're not going my curtains? All right, I'm leaving you. Why are you leaving? I left him because I said, get these curtains, and he's going to say those curtains are ugly, and he's going to use his, that's compromise. But what's settling? To compromise those small things, those small things. And that was now the curtains are very small, right? But maybe it's something like, I don't know. He leaves something on the floor all the time, right? And he's like, how would he pick this up? That's compromise. You say, I'm leaving you because you always got your drawers on the floor. That's compromise. I wouldn't necessarily say that's settling. I would say that's probably on the line of compromise because, is that really a big deal breaker, right? To some it may. To some it may. And that's a deal breaker for you. It really probably should have been a deal breaker before you said I do, though. Like if you're that serious on that, and you're like, all right, that's just me as a person. I'm so OCD, ODC, CDO, whatever it is. If that's you, hey, you have that ability to say, you know what, that's me. I'm going to pass. Still think that it's still not that serious, but you haven't made that strong commitment, that lifetime commitment to good, goodness, to good and bad, death do your part, sickness, health, poor, rich, broke, everything, right? So yeah, if you want to make that thing be a thing, what the drawers on the floor, pass, right? But when it comes to marriage, I think that's kind of like compromising, not a deal breaker. So settling though, we talk about compromise. Settling is abuse, right? I'm just going to stay here. And not necessarily physical. It could be mental, emotional, all those things. Abuse is abuse. It comes in different levels. It's not always physical. Sometimes it's mental. Sometimes it's emotional. Even sometimes spiritually, right? That is, for me, settling. Or perhaps this person has no ambition, no drive. You keep trying to push them. And they're like, that's settling to me, right? They are perhaps not. They are not faithful to the relationship, and you gave them a chance, and they do it again, and you gave them a chance. That's settling. That's settling. Now, the first time, you don't even got to give them a chance. In my opinion, it's up to you, right? Some people will give them a chance, but again, those type of things, what you call settling. But should love have limits? I asked that question. I asked it in both chats. You too, want to hear from you. Should love have limits? Facebook, I want to hear from Facebook too as well. Should love have limits? All right, sorry about that. Now, so we talk about that. And my last question to that, should love have limits? I want to ask this question. When does staying become self-sacrificial rather than healthy? When does staying becomes self-sacrificial rather than healthy? Like some people will sacrifice their sanity, sacrifice their dignity just to stay. And that's not healthy. At what point do you say, you know what, I'm just going through the motions? That's not healthy for my life. It's a self-sacrifice. They literally have you there, and for the most part, you're probably no longer even being who you are, not being true to yourself. So you're sacrificing yourself, sacrificing your sanity, sacrificing maybe your finances, sacrificing your character just to appease them. So should love have limits? Should love have limits? Now, let's get to some real life scenarios, and I want to hear from you. All right, in the chat, real life scenarios. All right, your partner lose their job and isn't actively trying to get back on their feet. How long do you support them? Let me hear from you. Your partner lose their job, and they're not trying to get back on their feet. They haven't even they're not even applied. They haven't sent resumes out. How long do you stick around, or do you just stick around and just deal with it? Good point here. Mary says that some people do it because they don't want to be alone. Yeah, and that's what happens. Some people just say, you know what? I don't want to be alone. I have what is called SAD. I got this SAD thing going on. And what SAD is separation anxiety disorder. Separation anxiety disorder. When they are separate from their mate and their spouse, they have this whole level of anxiety. They start worrying. They start thinking, where are they? What they doing? Do they still love me? Because they're not around me. I'm going crazy. I can't live without them. Sad. It's really sad, really. Separation anxiety disorder. Some people, they don't, they can't be alone, to your point. And sometimes with separation anxiety disorder, they confuse it with love. I said I wanted to talk about that another time, but some people will confuse separation anxiety disorder with love. I see posts all the time on Facebook, and they'll say, what do they say? Soon, life is just messed. As soon as they walk out the door, I feel life is just messed up. Like I just can't go on. They just went out the door to go to the store. I went to work, and they're like, I just feel like I can't go on. Like you can go on, you can go on. You can move. It's not that serious, but for me to say it's not that serious, somebody with separation anxiety disorder, it is serious. And sometimes that came from some past things in their life, relationships, childhood, where something happened where a person that was supposed to be there for them didn't step up to the plate. And so they have this level of anxiety where they feel like, the next person that has came in my life and said they're going to be there for me, I need them there for me 24/7. And that's great, but 24/7, meaning realistically 24/7 in my face, is not realistic. And so they struggle with this separation anxiety disorder, and they may have that and think they have love, but in reality, they got separation anxiety disorder. It's not, I'm so in love. It's, you're so into some other stuff, right? And so we talk about this unconditional love. How long do you stay? I see Mary says 2 months. So 2 months, basically give your, will you give you, so you'll give your mate, say, hey, you know what? You lost your job. We're sorry. Boo-hoo. Let's move on, right? 2 months. After 2 months, then what? Do you say, I'm done with you? The question is, your partner loses their job and isn't actively trying. We're not saying they lost their job and say, all right, 2 months, you can get a job, I'm gone. No, they're not even trying to get back on their feet. How long do you support them? So after 2 months, then what's the conversation then? You too, talking to you too as well. After 2 months, what's the conversation then? Do you say, yeah, this ain't working. We're going to go our separate ways. Yeah, this ain't it. Now, again, 2 scenarios, pre-marriage and marriage. So if you're married, do you divorce someone for that reason? Is that like a divorceable, if that's a word, is that a divorceable offense that they lost their job and then they're not trying to get married? Trying to get married. They're not trying to get another job. Is that like a divorceable offense? What do you think? Now, in a relationship, it's easy to say, all right, this person has no ambition. We're going to just kind of let's part our ways. It's easy to say that in a relationship. But when it comes to a marriage, how do you handle that, right? That scenario. Why are you not trying to find, so comment says, why are you not trying to find work? Then you have to go, yeah, if you're not trying to find work, yeah. Now, is that the same for a husband that you got to go? Or is that, married, is that only when before you say I do? So if your husband is not trying, it's been 2 months, what do? You say you going too? Or is that just like for someone that you're in a relationship with and you have not said I do yet? Another scenario, I want to hear your thoughts on it. What if your partner doesn't get along with your loved ones? Right? What if your partner doesn't get along with your loved ones? Is that a deal breaker? Let's say it's your children. Because the children, that's a big one, right? Say it's your children and your partner did not get along with your children. They don't like it. They don't like your children. Your children don't like them. Do you say, yeah, we're going to go ahead and just, we're not going forward. Now, again, 2 scenarios, pre-marriage, marriage. Now, if your kids didn't like your partner, I think once you get married, by that time, you would have known if they like them or not, right? So you'd known before you got married, before you said I do, you should know that now, some kids may like it now, then you get married, then they change, right? Because now it's a whole different dynamic. Well, they're married. They're in the household now. Is that a deal breaker? Because I told you in the beginning of the show that some will argue that only unconditional love happens when a lot of times with the parent and a child. That people will argue that mates, that husband and wives don't have unconditional love because if something happens in that marriage that is a deal breaker for them, they will leave. Now, others will argue and say, well, they still love them. No, I'm trying to love them too. When I say love them and keep that same relationship, right? You forgive them and y'all stay together. That type of unconditional love, not that I love you and you still got to go, right? So you're married now and the child's like, I don't really care for him anymore. He's a little mean. We live with him and he's a little mean. Do you say, goodbye, husband? Because my baby said you mean. My baby said you whooped him. My baby said you cussed him out. He said, sit your down. Whatever that means, whatever y'all gonna say, whatever y'all say. What do, right? Do you stay with that spouse and tell the child, hey, me and your mama, me and your daddy are one. And when you get 18, you can leave if you got such a problem with them. But for the next 14 years, you will have to deal with it. Or do you say, that's my baby. Mm-mm. You got to go, man. Come on, let's have this conversation because guess what? It's real. This is real. That's why your kids have to know your other half. They do. And the thing is, though, they will know them, right? You would think they'll get to know them during dating phase, during engagement phase. But there is a dynamic when once people get married and they live now with them, right? It could be a whole different dynamic. And now the child's like, I really don't like who you talking to, mom. Or who you married, mom. Or dad, I don't like her. I don't, So does the father say, well, my children said they don't like you. And, I love my child unconditionally, but I love you conditionally. I love my child unconditionally, but I love you conditionally. Goodbye. Or do you say, forget you, shut up, Johnny. You're going to deal with it. I've got comments. Them kids sometimes don't like anybody just to keep someone from, and that's real. That's real. Them kids sometimes don't like anybody just to keep someone from around their parent. That's true. They'll use that. And I got some comments. My phone's jumping up here on YouTube. When you settle and you're going against what you want. And that's true, Erica. I agree. Compromise instead of eating out. You could, right. Compromise, yeah. So you're like, hey, you know what? I like to eat out, but she like to cook. We're going to compromise. We're going to do 2 days cooking. Good point. Communication is key. You should be speaking with your partner about what's going on. You have to talk about mental health, depression. Yes, that's very big. I talked to a young man the other 2 weeks ago, and he had married someone, and he said he had no idea that this woman was suffering with mental issues, and he was diagnosed with bipolar. So he got married to someone that had mental issues, that also had a mental diagnosis of bipolar. Didn't find it out till the mother said, hey, I know why you're going through, because my daughter has bipolar. And I mean, when he said he was going through. It ended their marriage. But you know what? To your point, Erica, it should have been discussed pre-marriage, right? Because then, I'm not saying because you were diagnosed with bipolar that means you can't get married, you won't find love. No, not saying that at all. But you have to be able to be honest with your partner, so they can say, am I capable of dealing with this? Do I want to? And I say deal, but what's another word? Do I want to accommodate? Maybe accommodate your mental health concern here. I think that's fair to the other person, because guess what? They may not want to deal with it. And someone else may come along and say, hey, you know what? Guess what? I'm a psychiatrist. I'll deal with it. No. They may be like, you know what? I don't care about that, because my love for you is so much far deeper than some of your mental concerns. But however, it's a good conversation to have. So you're right. Those conversations must be talked about. And then also, Eric, I see you said family oriented. So if I don't get along with your family, it's a no for me. Ooh, strong no. Okay. Strong no. I hear you. If I don't, yes, that's a strong no. All right. Because family is important, right? You have family gatherings, you have family, like, do your partner want to go to the family gathering, cook out and hang out, and got issues with the family? It's going to be very awkward, right? Because the other person that's their family, so they want to be around them, right? And so now you're in a situation where, do I stay home because I want to deal with them? Or do I go and just be very, play the politics and be like, I can't stand these people? That's a big one. That's a good point. Good point. We say here, Benjamin, what if you got married and your kids have anything to do with your wife? Yeah, that's another one, right? That can happen. Your kids don't want to have anything to do with your wife. But as a husband, that's someone you're committed to, right? So your kids really don't, in my opinion, what I really want to say is, forget those kids. When it comes to your husband, when it comes to the husband and wife, you're married, and a kid comes along, I don't like your spouse. Forget those kids. Because you are married, you are now married to that person. You two are one. And kids will try to find a way, if they can, to break that oneness, because maybe for a while they're so used to just you and them, right? So you want to say, hey, me and your mama, me and your husband, me and your daddy are one now. You're not coming to separate us. A mom of 4 boys, the boys will act like they run the house. Yeah, and I've seen that. And I've even seen that with mothers that have older sons too. Sometimes mothers have like sons that are maybe even in their 20s, some in their 30s, some in their 40s living with them. And they will try to run that place like they're the man of the house. And perhaps maybe they felt they were the man of the house because why? Growing up again, it was just them and the mom, or vice, or maybe the daughter, right? Because a lot of times it's the mother and the kids, but there's times too where there's the father and their children, and so it could be an interesting dynamic when you talk about living together with the kids, and the kids can try to come and be a wedge, and sometimes kids, especially when they're younger, may not be purposely doing it, but they are doing it, right? And they don't know all the repercussions behind doing such a thing, because some parents are like, hey, they'll tell you, if my kids don't like you, then we can't talk. Yeah. Forget you and those kids. They don't like you, we can't talk. Okay. Like the kid is 3 or 4 years old. They have no type of mindset on what is a quality of person. Like I don't really get that for real. Just to be honest, people say it all the time. I don't know if I really subscribe to that. I don't subscribe to that. This little person is 2 and 3 years old. They know they can feel what? They don't even know what 2 plus 2 is. They don't have the logic. Do they have the real logic to say, oh, mommy, this ain't the one? No, sit down, eat a popsicle. You don't know. They don't even know how to change. They don't even know how to change themselves. Like, now my baby, she knows. I'm like, your baby is 8 months. They don't know. Like, no, they can tell. Well, you're going to be single for a long time. Every time you pick them up, she cries. She cries all the time. It ain't got nothing to do with me. All right. I digress. I digress. Here's another scenario, my other scenario. Your spouse cheats once, okay? Your spouse cheats once, but they are genuinely remorseful. Do you leave or do you stay? Let's talk Facebook. Let's talk Facebook. Your spouse cheat once. Like, hey, I had a weak moment. And she didn't mean anything. And I love you. I don't love her. I deleted her phone number. I want to see her again. Oh, no, I want to see her again. I want to see her again. I'm sorry. Was that good, y'all? I want to see her again. I want to see her again. Okay. I'm sorry. What you over there drinking, Vic? I'm drinking Dr. Pepper. This is brought to you by Dr. Pepper. No, your spouse cheat once, right? And they really genuinely remorseful. They crying, crocodile tears. Do you stay or do you leave? Let me hear you. Brothers, she says, you know what? Tyrone went the job, was smelling so good. And, he always said he liked my hair. And one thing led to another. Do you stay? Fellas, do you stay? Women, do you stay? So we got, what's all that? Everybody laughing. We got one person said leave. Okay. Do you leave or stay? Let me hear you too. They cheat. They're remorseful. Do you leave or stay? Erica said, I'm leaving. That's a boundary you cross. I don't care how remorseful you are. Deuces. Gotta go. But one time, Erica, just one time, he didn't mean it. He just had a weak moment. He didn't mean it. He just had a weak moment. He just got weak in his knees. That's all. Can you give him one more? You want to give him one more chance? I know, like one time he cheated, right? Well, the second time, okay, maybe, but he just cheated once. Let me put it here. He cheated once. He or she. I'm tired of saying he, because y'all always trying to, because society says it's always us. Forget y'all and society. He or she cheated once. Cheated once. Do you stay or leave? And they are sincerely sorry for it. Sincerely. She said, hey, no, one time is enough. I'm done. That trust is, I guess, because the trust is broken. I'm not going to do it. Sorry. And she put the deuces. Fellas, where you at? I want to hear some fellas. Do you stay? Do you give her one more chance, fellas? I think we got a couple fellas on here. Women said no. 2 women said leave. Okay. All right. All right. No, because it's going to bring insecurities, and you now have broken my trust. So yeah, it's a trust thing, right? But can that trust be regained, right? Can that trust be brought back? Could he do some things that will make you feel more secure in the relationship? Because I've heard, I heard a teaching recently where he said that they said if a woman cheats, it's probably some real emotions there. Because a lot of women don't. Now, there's always an exception. There's some exceptions though. But a lot of women, when they cheat from emotions, right? They may have an emotional attachment to this person. So maybe this guy was, been in her ear for a while now, and she's finally just like, I'm just gonna go ahead and do it because I'm emotionally connected. But a male will cheat just because he's just trying to get some and take care of himself, but he don't care nothing about that girl. But he really loves his wife. The other one was just like hey, just want to have some fun. And I don't get that. I know what they mean when they say that. I just want to have some fun. Have fun with your wife, right? I mean, can't you just have fun with your wife? But, it is what it is. But can you come back from that if you say, hey, I don't really care about this. That was just a one-off. I shouldn't have did it, right? I'm wrong for doing it. I own up to it. Let me gain your trust back. Can he gain your trust back? All right. Some of y'all ain't answering that question. All right, forget y'all. So let me ask this. Is one-time betrayal forgivable though? One time betrayal, is that forgivable? How do you recognize the difference between a mistake and a pattern of behavior? So if it's one time, yeah, it's wrong, it's a big deal. I'm not minimizing because it's only one time. One time's okay. One time, and that one time you're out. Ain't no 3 strikes you're out in this relationship. No, some people are like, one time, I'm done. It's forgivable though, right? As long as it's not a pattern of a behavior, can you forgive and can that person get redemption? I mean, didn't God forgive you? Think about those that are Christians and believers. How many times God forgave you? Crickets. Yeah. Now, am I saying to forgive them? So I will say this. I do believe in the power of forgiveness, and I believe we should forgive people. But you can forgive them, but not necessarily have to stay with them. Yeah, forgive them, move on, but I'm not probably going to stay with you, but I forgive you. Forgive you for hurting me, forgive you for betraying the trust. But you betrayed the trust, and I'm just going to say, I'm going to just bounce. But I forgive you still, and I still love you. But this ain't going to work. I think that is fair, and that's just being honest and open. Do you feel, I got 2 more points and I'm done for tonight. Do you feel that social media or society have an influence on deal breakers? Do you what we see posted and all those things? Does that kind of have like a strong influence on what's acceptable and what's not, right? The impact of public opinions on private relationships. I'll say it again. I think the impact on public opinions on private relationships have an influence on how you're going to react whenever you deal with something in your relationships. No one can tell me otherwise. I really do feel that way. Or do modern standards make people give up too quickly? Do you feel that we give up too quickly? Say, I don't want to deal with it. Forget it. It's off, right? We're not long suffering. In Corinthians, it talk about love is long suffering. What does that mean? It suffers long. That's what it means. Like, it goes through things, but it's still love. It goes through trials, it goes through tests, but it still loves. At what point, though, do you say, you know what, we're cutting this off? Another comment here, if he came and told me that might change the outcome, but if he didn't, that's going to be tough. That's fair, Erica. That's fair. Because a lot of times people don't share it because they haven't been caught, or they're not remorseful till they get caught, right? Oh, I'm so sorry. Well, if you're sorry, you probably should have shared it Now, here's another. I hear you, Erica. Here's another thing, though, and I've heard this from a doctor, and he says that if it's a one-time thing, he feels that you should not share it with your spouse because you'll hurt them. If you know you're not going back to that person, you made a mistake, don't share it because you're going to hurt them. Just don't do it again. Ooh, what y'all think about that? Let me see. If it's a one-time thing, one-time cheating instance, should you keep it secret? Should you just keep it secret and don't do it again? Now he says, if it's like multiple, no, tell her, because you got a pattern now. So pattern behavior is not like, oh my goodness, I feel horrible, I shouldn't have did it. And his whole ideology behind not saying anything to, about the woman not saying it to her husband, or if the husband's cheating or the wife's cheating, whatever, because you're gonna hurt them so much. And it's like that one time instance that didn't mean anything to you can cause a whole big breakup, divorce, and weighing the option, like that one time mistake, that infidelity, that adultery, all that. Hey, let's call it a mistake, call it what it is. Is it cool to say, because I know I'm not going to do it again, don't share it? See, yeah, she said because social media has made people think people are disposable. Yeah, I think when I asked the question about the power of social media, and do they make decisions for us and tell us what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. That's a tough one. What I don't know won't hurt me, but what I find out will. I get you. So yeah, so kind of like, that's a tough one, right? What you don't know won't hurt you, but here's the risk that you run into is, okay, he don't tell you, and then just say 10 years down the road, some type of way it comes out. Now what? And you've had 10 years of bliss, marital bliss, you're enjoying each other, life is great. Do you look at that spouse as a betrayer because they didn't share it? But they didn't share it because they felt like this meant nothing. It was a one-time thing. I'm not doing it again. It's not a pattern. It's not who I am. How does that work? Because 10 years down the road, you find out, do you say, all right, I'm gone because of what you did 10 years ago? And just kind of forget everything that you all build and created, right, all this time because of what he did 10 years ago. When I talk about this relationship stuff, it's not always black and white, I tell you, right? And we talk about unconditional love. Man, unconditional love I think it's something that people think they have, but in reality, many people love is conditional. It's conditional, and that's a hard reality because some things that may be a deal breaker will challenge your love. Okay, Erica says no. 10 years. I hear you, Erica. 10 years down, I'm gonna have to forgive you, right? I guess I shouldn't say have to. Oh, you said have to. You don't necessarily have to, but I think it probably is the right thing to do. Especially throughout the rest of the time there was nothing, and that was a one-time thing. Yeah, But again, everybody have their own thing. My last question here, thoughts here. Setting boundaries without losing love. Like, how do you communicate deal breakers early on? And I think you just have to just lay it all out there. I mean, I ask that question. It's kind of a rhetorical question because I would say let's lay it all out there. Hey, these are the deal breakers. Now, I said early in the show that sometimes you don't know what are deal breakers until something breaks the deal, right? Like every scenario we cannot probably imagine is a deal breaker. I think though, when we talk about deal breakers, you guys just probably give a more bold, like a more of a bolded or topical different deal breakers. Make it topical because, for example, trust, right? I can't give you every scenario that may happen that's going to cause me not to trust you. You get what I'm saying? So when I say sometimes deal breakers is through experiences, yeah, I think it's through experiences because sometimes you can't think of every scenario that's going to make you feel like, oh, I don't trust you, But when it happens, so I think deal breakers have to be talked about and it has to be more of a broadened, like a broadened umbrella, right? Because trust, so many things can fall into trust, right? What's another one? Honesty, kind of very similar to trust, but honesty, how honest you are. Of course, the big one, commitment, right? If you're committed, and what does that look like? What is the bullet points on the commitment? Like, hey, no cheating on me, all right? Now, under no cheating, that bullet point, no cheating, you may have to do some sub bullets because some people don't necessarily cheat, but they do other stuff that can lead to cheating, and other stuff can be still classified as cheating, right? So I don't know if people still do this, but sexing. Oh, I didn't cheat with them, but I sent them some pictures of my boobs. Yeah, that's cheating. But we ain't do nothing. But you sent them some inappropriate pictures. That's cheating, right? So like everything you probably cannot label, but then when it happens, you're like, hey, that falls under this category. More comments here. If you're a follower or not for social media, what's that to have that type of effect on any type of you really would think that social media wouldn't have that effect on people. I hear you, King D, because but it does. People are really into social media, what social media has to say. And I'm sorry if I'm looking down, I'm looking at some of the comments, sorry. Many people are into social media and what social media has to say. People follow social media in terms of what success looks like, what's the new trends, all those things, right? Should it be that way? Definitely not. One of my last questions tonight is, can people change for love or should they have to? Right? So we talk. We talk about the deal breakers. We communicate that, and maybe some of the deal breakers are some attributes your partner have. Do they say, "This is just me, deal with it," or do they say, "Let me compromise, let me change"? Do you change for love, or should you just stay who you are? Let's talk about that. Do you change? Come on, let me hear from you. Real quick, in our last 7 minutes, last 5 minutes, last 3 minutes. I would love to hear what you got to say. Can people change for love or should they have to? Should people, if that's them, hey, this is me. You're going to love me for me or you ain't going to love me for me. But at the end of the day, this is me. I'm not changing. So if you want to be with me, great. If you don't. Or do you feel that sometimes you do have to change? Because some of the things they're asking of you is probably something that you probably need to change anyway, right? Do you change for love or do you say, this is me, deal with it? If you don't like me for me, then I'm sorry. Because some people are like that. Hey, I'm not changing for nobody. This is me. God made me this way. And I'm going to be me. I'm going to do me. And I think sometimes doing you is the wrong thing because you is a trip. Sometimes you'll say, you know what? I don't want to do me because me is a trip at times. But I want to do what is right. Sometimes what is right is the opposite of what you've been doing. Sometimes what is right is the opposite of what you've been doing that you thought was right, but is actually probably wrong. If you have to change for love, is it really love? I like the response, Erica. If you got to change for it, it's real. But what if it's something that's probably that you should change for? Like, so I'm like, you know what? He says, you know what? Hey, baby, I love you, but I think sometimes you kind of be in your friend's business too much. I think you probably just kind of let them take care of their business. Maybe offer advice if they ask you, but I think sometimes you just maybe too much in their business, and I just don't like that. It just don't sit well with me. Do you change? Is he really telling you something that's wrong? In so many words, he's telling you like you're busy, but you're nosy. Get some business, baby. Get out their business. Worry about us. But what if you're so used to that's just you, right? Do you change? Even though it's a good request. I think it's a good request. Mind your own business, baby. He may not say it that way, but some people may like, hey, this is not your own business. Some people are, it's not your own business. But some may say it more tactful and say, hey, I think you probably should let them deal with their business, and we can kind of just focus on us. So in that situation, would you change? Because to me, it wouldn't be a bad change. Angela says, I jumped on late. If you want growth there, you should be some change. Well, yeah. So yeah, if you want growth there, should be some change along the way. And I think it will. Even when you say I do, after you say I do, I think we're all constantly changing and evolving in a way. And I think that even in successful relationships, you got to do some changing and some evolving. Not changing who you are as a person, though. And I think that's what you maybe be talking about too, Erica. Is not changing who you are as a person. Those your morals and your character, who you are. No, you're not going to change that. But there could be some tweaking that are not necessarily big things, right? So yeah, hey, listen. Unconditional love versus deal breakers. My last thing. So if you say it's over because there was a deal, it was a deal breaker, would you say your love was not unconditional? Would you say your love was conditional? If you break it off, cut it off, divorce, separate, whatever, would you say that your love probably was not unconditional, but it was conditional? And is it okay to be in a relationship, get married, and have conditional love? Is it okay? Is it okay to have conditional love? Not unconditional, but conditional love. Is that okay? I'm gonna give us. I started about 3 minutes late, so we got like 2 or 3 more minutes, real quick. Is it okay to get married on the premise that my love is conditional? Because many people get married on the premise that my love is unconditional, and then they get divorced, and then so some say that was it really unconditional or was it conditional based upon this? Like, I love you as long as this condition is met, but if this condition is not met, then we're going to divorce. The challenge though is, and I always fight with this argument that you can still love somebody, but not stay there. You can still love them, but not be no longer in their company, be in their presence. So then so that argument will say then, my love was unconditional because I still love you. Because the challenge with the unconditional love is it defined that I still stay? Like, hey, if I say I love you still and I forgive you, does that mean I still got to stay though? Yeah, I got 2 minutes, y'all. What do you say? Facebook, YouTube, what do you say? Is it no longer unconditional if you don't stay? Huh? I'll wait for you. Is it no longer unconditional if you don't stay? I'm going to put that in the chat. Is it no longer unconditional love if you don't stay? I thought I saw a comment. Maybe I didn't. Okay. Is it no longer unconditional love if you don't stay? I want to leave on that note. Is it no longer unconditional love if you don't stay? Hey, thank y'all for tuning in tonight. We talked about unconditional love versus those deal breakers. Do you stay, keep on loving them, or can you love them and leave? Love them and leave them. Remember that song? That's still something like that. I wish I remember what the lyrics were. But listen, thank y'all for watching tonight. Tune in next Tuesday, same time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.